Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, a state Supreme Court decision boosts Arizona's education funding by millions of dollars. And is Arizona ready for the start of enrollment in the Affordable Care Act's health marketplace? The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining me tonight are Mary Kay Reinhardt of the Arizona Republic, Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal, and Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times. The Arizona Supreme Court ruled this week that lawmakers must pay for inflation adjustments, that is, to the state's education funding as mandated by voters. And that's the key. Talk to us about this issue.
Well, in a unanimous ruling, the justices said that the Voter Protection Act means what it says. When voters said in 2000 that they wanted schools fully funded, that's what they wanted. And the legislature in the past few years has not done so. According to the lawsuit, they have withheld inflation funding, which is just basically giving schools, letting them account for additional funding that they need to keep up with inflation. The legislative leaders argue that's kind of what we did this year. We gave them $82 million there. That's your inflation funding. But the case, clearly, it's going to come down to how much and when, but it's also about whose job is it to appropriate this money. The legislature, House Speaker Andy Tobin and Senate President Biggs, and believe that it's the legislature's job to appropriate money. But when the voters say, this is what we want done, the Voter Protection Act says, then you shall do it. And if you don't do it, you've got to have a 3/4 majority of the legislature to override it.
Yeah, it sounds as though the Voter Protection Act, the legislature said we're the only ones who can appropriate money, and yet this was done, and the court's basically saying this was done, so it's got to be protected.
Yeah, this was a more definitive ruling against the legislature. The legislature has been pushing the envelope on this issue for a while, different areas, Medicaid, some of the budget cuts, and really taking this on. And I think the courts really took it to them on this one. Again, we'll see when it happens and how much any kind of back money they might have to pay. But it does kind of set the tone going forward for future legislatures and how they try to take on some of the voter-approved measures.
Talk again about the state's position here, because it seems as though this thing again was approved in 2000. VPA was what, 1998, something else. So it was in place when this was in place. The funding seemed to be going right along until what, 2010? Is that when the legislature decided no more inflation adjustments?
Yeah, around 2009. I think it was 2010 that the case specifically centered on, when the state went off this, this fiscal cliff and, hemorrhaging red ink, trying to find places to cut money. And they said, well, we can do this. We feel like there's some loopholes in Prop 301 that we can use to sidestep the Voter Protection Act. There is a provision that says you have to increase the base funding. It says base funding or transportation funding. They said, okay, well, that gives us an option. They also argued in court that much like the legislature is constitutionally prohibited from requiring future legislatures to do things, you can't bind them to specific things. They said, well, the voters can't do that either, so therefore they can't force the legislature year after year after year to appropriate this money. The trial court actually agreed with the legislature on this. It just got overturned at the Court of Appeals and now at the Supreme Court as well.
I still think the next time you see a recession and a budget crisis, you'll see the legislature do things like this and say, look, take us to court, we'll let the courts decide, and they'll at least take their chances there when they're in these type of tough budget binds.
Well, and as you pointed out, that's exactly what they did in the Access case. When they wanted to freeze, and they did freeze funding for childless adults on Medicaid, opponents took that to court and lost. There was a little bit of a different issue because there's the word available funds in that voter-approved expansion of Medicaid, which the appeals court in this case said, they essentially said they probably shouldn't have done this because of the Voter Protection Act, but we're not going to tell the legislature what's available. It's their job to determine what available funds are. So now that's moot because we're going to see Medicaid expansion. However, it does seem to have some bearing on that case as well.
And again, we should note that this is the previous year, no back payments now on the previous years. This just means from now forward?
That's my understanding.
Yes.
I think the fight is going to certainly be enjoined at the legislative level when we get back into session.
Well, the peril there is if you try to give them to pay back payments, where else do they take that money from?
That's
and they're probably going to go after the people that are asking the money for the money in the first place. So that's the big threat that you have. The legislature still has a lot of power, and how much do you really want to take them on when they're going to be deciding other budget matters that affect schools and universities and all those things?
Well, there's already an expectation, I think, that there's going to be more funding for education next year in the budget. I mean, a lot of people expect the governor to push for it. We've got, kind of a cash surplus right now, an extra $200 million more than expected. There's going to be a lot of pressure to put that into K-12. But in terms of, the other stuff, the next time we have a budget crisis and what's the legislature going to do? Remember, there's other places in education they can cut from, and there'll be more, back doors around Prop 301. There's soft capital funding and other things. You don't just have to go for the base funding.
Right. There's $900 million extra at the beginning of the fiscal year, but we already hear legislative Republican leaderships talking about budget deficits, as early as 2016, and a lot of that because of the tax cuts that they've passed, but other things I think added in there. So I don't think there's any appetite on the part of leadership to dump a whole lot of money onto the schools at this point, regardless of what the courts ruled.
Will we likely see more challenges in the future with the Voter Protection Act and initiatives that the legislature says this is our job, not the public's job, even though the public already did the job?
Probably, I'm sure they will. I mean, the legislature in general kind of hates this thing because it really ties their hands in a lot of cases. But it's getting harder and harder to challenge. This ruling, the latest in a series that really strengthens the Voter Protection Act. You had one a few years ago on the First Things First program that basically said the Voter Protection Act completely changed the rules of the game. It made the voters basically equal authority to legislators in passing law. It's the one wild card is you have this ruling a couple of weeks ago on the campaign contributions limit bill, where the judge basically said, well, the Voter Protection Act, when it said it applied to everything passed the same year in '98, that didn't happen. That's not applicable. So all that stuff's no longer voter protected.
Well, you got the legislature is very conservative, a lot of conservative Republicans, and they're adverse to some of these things that the voters have approved. Medicaid expansions, a lot of school spending, those types of things, the First Things First. They probably wouldn't vote for those. That's why someone took it to the ballot and the voters. So there's a natural built-in animosity towards these things. And when you're looking at things to cut in the budget in these tough times, what are you going to pick?
We also saw, I think, a bill that was introduced last session or the session before to take everything approved after the Voter Protection Act by the voters and take it back to voters again, because they didn't really, they may have meant it in 2000, but they really wouldn't want us to do this in 2013
Let them reconsider all of their previous votes. Yes.
And I think putting time limits, too, on things that are passed by voters. So who knows what kind of shenanigans we can come up with next session.
One more thing?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the dreams down there of a lot of Republicans in the legislature is some kind of Voter Protection Act reform. Some of the stuff that Mary Kay was talking about. There's a proposal this past session just to put kind of a warning on all, a mandated warning at the top of all ballot measures saying, hey, if you pass this, then you can only amend it or change it with these very rigorous standards, 3/4 votes, further the intent of the voters. It really makes it difficult for the legislature to maneuver, especially in cases like we saw a few years ago with the budget crisis.
It's just an interesting dynamic with politics here. Redistricting has something to do with it, but people name ID are Republicans, so they vote for Republicans in the legislature. But if you have a ballot measure that has enough money and funding, the voters will pass that often to the chagrin and opposition of the same legislature that they put in there.
All right. Can someone here explain what's going on with the Clemency Board and the governor? And apparently, I've heard bullying, I've heard strong arming. What the heck's going on here?
Well, you have a death row inmate whose execution is scheduled for a couple of weeks from now, named Edward Shadd, down from Bisbee, I believe. And this lawsuit claims that basically that his execution should be postponed. He did not get a fair shake from the Clemency Board, and they allege that the governor's office, really strong-armed people to deny clemency. And to back up their case, they have affidavits from 5 former members saying, the governor's chief of staff, Scott Smith, met with us and told us the governor's not happy with these votes. She wants, tough on crime. She doesn't want to see clemency. There were a couple of, votes for clemency that she didn't like. And they say they were really strong-armed. And so, you have this death row inmate saying, well, he was denied due process. This should be postponed until a new board can be seated that's independent and not subject to these pressures.
And we should mention of those 5 ex-members, they are ex-members. I mean, they did not last much longer after these alleged confrontations.
Yeah, but 2 were fired. I think 3 resigned. I think some alleged under pressure. One of them is the one who was ousted a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Hernandez, who had a lot of other issues around him too. But some of these folks say they resigned because they didn't like the pressure. And the Brewer has been, I think, pretty well known during her tenure as not really being for clemency. She's given that a lot less than a lot of her predecessors.
And we should note the Clemency Board is supposed to be independent, correct?
Right, but they're all appointed by the governor.
Well, they all, including one that wound up getting either fired or quitting.
Right. I mean, this goes way back. I mean, governors it's a political nightmare to commute the sentence of. I mean, you go back to Governor Mofford, you know, our caretaker governor, who basically, you know, was tarred and feathered over commuting 2 sentences for convicted murderers. In Brewer's case, a lot of this goes back to the longtime chairman Dwayne Belcher and that commission, that committee at the time recommended clemency. Basically said this was a miscarriage of justice over a gentleman who has since been released. The governor denied that request to commute this sentence. Within days, announced that she was going to be running for governor. It's supposed to be an independent board, but it's a very political issue.
If it's supposed to be an independent board, why, instead of the bullying and the strong-arming and the other words here, why doesn't the governor just step back and say, I disagree with this particular move, I think the board did something wrong, as opposed to setting the chief of staff up there to start pointing fingers and getting in people's faces?
Yeah, I think you've seen governors past and present, Napolitano, you know, and her staff pressured on the Pius to a peak things, where they're used to pressuring these boards into doing stuff. They're appointees. They're usually political allies or friends of the sitting governor. This is a different case, though. We're talking about due process, a capital punishment crime, and a lot of legal stuff. This isn't renaming a highway or some of the other stuff that goes on with all these other boards. This is much more serious matters we're talking about here. And I think you saw Haley Barbour in Mississippi. He pardons people. Got a lot of national media grief for that. And so maybe other Republican governors looked at that. But this is a whole different type of board that's all the other boards that we have. What they're considering is much more serious than these other panels that are out there.
And the governor's office, I believe, has denied that the governor interferes in any of these cases. But there's, you know, I don't think there was a lot of these individual allegations were really addressed, and so a lot else will come out. We know that not too long ago, some folk, you know, the governor's office met with a victims' rights advocate who was representing the father of a victim of someone who was up for clemency, the half brother of a former Suns player, Mari Stoudemire, actually. And there's a lot of dispute over what was said in that meeting, but you know, a lot of these individual allegations really haven't been addressed, no matter what's been denied by the governor's office.
And I could see the chief of staff finger pointing and getting in the face of someone who does something along those lines, or allegedly ogles women, or whatever the other accusations might have been. But for simply, I mean, they are there to make a decision. But if they're not there to make a decision, what are they there for? If the decision's always no.
I mean, it's a political minefield. Governors, as Mike said, from both parties, from the beginning of time, have found difficulty with pardoning or commuting the sentences of criminals. It's just been very difficult. And I think with this governor, you know, again, starting with William McCumber, before she ever ran for a full first, you know, her only first complete term of office, it was a very difficult sort of fence to walk when you had your clemency board and your chairman and unanimously saying to the governor, this guy's sentence was a miscarriage of justice. He never should have been in prison this long. And then to have a governor deny that, you know, and that's all public record. So so ideally, I guess, if you're a governor and you're making these appointments, you would like to be walking along sort of on the same track as your board.
It's just, you know, they have these political MOs and governors' offices, different parties, doesn't matter, operate certain ways. But when you're going to take somebody's life, you want to give them the most fair shake possible. And it doesn't appear from these stories that people are getting a fair shake based on a legal process. It seems like it's more politics.
All right, we'll see where that goes. We're also going to see, I guess, what happens for the Attorney General's race on the Republican side, because there will be a battle. The incumbent, Tom Horne, looks like he's going to face Mr. Brnovich. Talk to us about the challenger here. We talked about this a little bit a while ago when we heard that he was thinking of running. Now it sounds like he is going to run, and he's got some interesting connections, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's been he's been looking at this race for a while, and finally on last Friday was his last day at the Arizona Department of Gaming. Everyone figured him leaving was just a prelude to the AG's race, and turns out they were right. He filed yesterday. He's got an interesting resume. He's been a prosecutor with the AG's office, the county attorney's office, the U.S. attorney's office. He used to work for the Goldwater Institute. He used to work for Corporations CCA, which is a private prison company, which is getting them, a lot of flack from some folks right now because private prisons are pretty unpopular in some quarters. But this could be an interesting race. There's a lot of Republicans who are, kind of concerned that, with all the problems that Horn has faced over the last year and a half, that if he gets into that general election against Felicia Rodolini, who ran a pretty tight race against him in 2010, they're concerned that that's an important seat that the Republicans could lose. So he's got some kind of big supporters in his corner, it looks like.
But you've got the incumbent with Horn, and I know that he's got some connections with Five Symington's people and some other, big names in the Republican Party, and Brnovich has those connections to Goldwater Institute. Again, in the general, I think that's where the CCA connection may come into play. I don't know about the Republican side of things here. But is this serious business for Tom Horn?
I think so. I think, Horn's got enough baggage from the FBI investigations, the hit and run, the campaign finance, that if Brnovich has a legitimate campaign, some money to run ads and mailers, and then maybe some fatigue with Horn. And there's concerns about Rodolini. She got money last time from Democrats nationally. She may be their best hope to win a statewide race this time. And there's a person named Janet Napolitano who won an AG's race, had a very successful career here. She's kind of seen as an up-and-coming star in the Democratic Party. So I think the Republicans looking at that. From Brnovich's standpoint, it kind of compares to Bill Montgomery. Montgomery lost to Terry Goddard pretty badly, but ran a decent campaign, kind of got his story out there. People were impressed with him, and now he's a Maricopa County attorney. So what does he have to lose?
Real quickly, on the Democratic side, Felicia Rodolini seems to be obviously the front runner now. I keep hearing Terry Goddard is interested in this. I mean, would he step into something where an up-and-coming star seems like it's her turn? Are we going to see a little fight there on the Democratic side, too?
Well, it remains to be seen. I guess with Terry Goddard, it's hard to count him out at this point. But certainly, I think Felicia Rodolini believes it's her race at this point, and I think would love nothing more than to go up against Republican Tom Horn in the general election.
Democrats are really trying to clear their races. Obviously, Chad Campbell's out of the governor's race.
Right.
They're trying to encourage Goddard to maybe run for Secretary of State if he chooses. If he chooses to run, he'd be a formidable candidate there. They have a pretty formidable slate if you had Rodolini and him running in clear primaries.
Okay, we have a pretty formidable date next week with the healthcare marketplace. Enrollment starts on Tuesday. Go ahead, tell us all about it.
Oh goodness, have you got a couple of weeks? It's a big bill, the Affordable Care Act, and it's a lot going on, on both sides of efforts to enroll and educate and enroll folks in online healthcare marketplaces, as well as the Medicaid expansion that Arizona and roughly 20 plus other states passed over the past year. It is roughly 1 million uninsured Arizonans and other folks who may find better deals on the healthcare exchange. What Tuesday is sort of the starting gun. I think there are a lot of folks out there who are working very hard to educate and enroll people through the community health centers and through other nonprofit organizations and hospitals who worry and sort of want to dampen expectations a little bit about the early results here, because this is a long slog. This is a 6-month enrollment window. It's a pretty long enrollment window, but it's really something that I think the Obama administration is looking at over a number of years. So although they want to insure everybody in this country, they're looking at 7 million people in the first year. So we're not, we're kind of looking at getting everybody on board some sort of an insurance plan at some point in the future, not necessarily Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just when it all gets started.
And we're going to talk about this Monday. We're going to talk about what the community health centers are doing, the navigators, and all these folks who are trying to get the information. Is the information getting out there? This feels like the Common Core issue where no one's really paying attention, and it's here.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen a big program like this where people have been more confused, have less knowledge about this. Business owners don't have knowledge, consumers, young people, nobody really seems to have much clue of what's going on. And the media is always accused of kind of carrying the president's water, but most of the stories on Obamacare are all negative. It's about companies cutting hours to avoid it. It's about people not knowing. All the polls show people not knowing. And so there's so much confusion out there from employers, from people that are uninsured, from people that have insurance now, that I think people are just kind of waiting and seeing. And I actually think people will enroll more towards the end when there's word of mouth and they start talking to people that they trust and their families and their friends and their associates that have done this, and then they kind of explain it to them, because believe me, most people have no idea what's going on.
The thinking is that people who have been insured in the past and lost insurance, in Arizona there were hundreds of thousands of those people, and who have chronic illnesses, will rush to sign up. Those are going to be the first people in the door. You're going to see insurance brokers, and you're going to see all kinds of sort of private industry H&R Block in Arizona, for example, is going to be helping people sign up while they do their taxes. So you're going to see efforts, I think, rolling out slowly through the fall into the winter, and as the new year begins. And so I do think it's going to be more of a slow roll than any kind of a big, explosion on Tuesday. And I think that's intentional. And I think you'll also see more media, sort of, the federal government's media, as well as private, health plans and nonprofits and corporations start with more broad-based ad campaigns than you've seen up to now.
And there's probably going to be a lot of people, like you guys said, that are going to be harder to reach. Young folks, probably who don't have insurance, maybe don't really see a need for it, are probably going to be more hesitant to sign up. And now you're seeing, concerted efforts by conservatives, Tea Party folks to actually discourage people from taking part of this. They're urging people to opt out, kind of helps undermine Obamacare, saying, keep government out of your health care and all that. There's a kind of a risque internet ad that's been making the rounds on this. And you mentioned the starting gun, and you're really starting to see some of these efforts ramp up. 21-hour speech in the U.S. Senate by Ted Cruz urging defunding Obamacare. Some of these efforts are really ramping up now on this.
The efforts to undermine the Affordable Care Act, I mean, how serious are these? How prevalent are these? And are we going to see a ramped up effort here in the next few days?
Yes, and I think to Mike's point about the confusion or even lack of understanding, I mean, there was a poll a couple of months ago that showed a significant number of people didn't even know for sure if it was the law. So there's a big education effort, that's been underway here. And a lot of it directed toward young adults because they're key to the success of this thing. They're gonna since the young healthy folks that come onto the exchange are going to help pay for the sick old folks who come onto the exchange who are going to be more costly to care for. The way I think that what people are concerned about is undermining that effort, especially where young adults are concerned, who may feel like, what insurance? I don't need insurance. These so-called young invincibles who will pay a fine at the end of next year of $95 and may argue that, that's I'd rather have beer money in March, than pay the fine at the end of the year. Some of that's a little bit of a misnomer, I think, because some polls are also showing that young adults, if they have the option, the vast majority of them will sign up for health insurance and believe that they need it. So we'll just see, as that information gets out there, you start to see tables on campuses all over the state, what kind of decisions that they make.
It's just like signing up for a public health program like Medicaid. You go onto the Web Access website here in the state, or you go down to some state office and people figure that out. This is kind of like COBRA. It's very confusing. You've got private company involved, and people don't know kind of where to go. There's no single point yet. I know they're trying to address that and move forward.
I thought there was a single. Isn't there a
There is.
single point?
But most people don't have no idea where that's.
Well,
Right.
healthcare.gov. I'll tell you right now. The one point you want to go to is healthcare.gov. That's the single point online. If you go there from any state in the country, it will take you where you need to go. If you're in a state that has its own state-run marketplace, it'll take you there. In Arizona, and you tell them that you don't earn enough money to qualify for anything other than Medicaid, it'll take you to the Medicaid site. So it's a pretty sophisticated site. In addition to that, the federal government and others are supporting navigators, guides, outreach and enrollment specialists, and they're spread thin, but they're out there looking to do what Mike's talking about, which is once you get somebody on there, help them figure out what it is, where they belong and what they need, and how they get signed up.
Opponents have lost in the courts, they've lost in Congress, but they've won this kind of public opinion battle of confusing people. People don't know if they're going to be able to keep their doctor or the doctor that they had, or you still hear people talking about the death panels and those things. There's so many myths out there. People not sure when the law went into effect, or if it is the law, because it's such a complicated bill, complicated program, and it's not as straightforward as people are used to.
And we should emphasize again, October 1st is when you can start to enroll. It doesn't end October 2nd. I mean, that's when the gates open. You move forward at your own pace.
You have until the end of March, the open enrollment period on the marketplaces, and if you're qualifying for Medicaid, it's rolling enrollment. You get on there as soon as you're able to get on to Medicaid if you're eligible. But I think you're right. To your point, they've lost at every step of the way. This is their last-ditch effort, is just to try to keep people from signing up for this thing.
Real quickly, before we go, Representative Doris Goodale suffered a stroke, apparently a serious stroke, but it sounds like the prognosis is pretty good. What are you hearing here?
Yeah, I was just actually talking to Speaker Tobin today, and one of the House Majority staff has seen her. She's doing much better. The family is very encouraged by her recovery. Representative Goodale may be back in Kingman. She was in the Las Vegas hospital recovering. It was that serious that she was airlifted there. They think she might be back as early as this weekend in rehab and expected to make a full recovery.
Wow, and in time for the session, which will be very interesting. And again, you talk about education funding and stuff. She's a champion for education up there representing Northwestern Arizona. So we wish her the best of health. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. Monday on Arizona Horizon, enrollment in the Affordable Care Act begins next week. We'll look at the details of how the program will work in Arizona, and we'll talk to a health insurance marketplace navigator about helping Arizonans enroll in the system. Those stories Monday on Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, we'll learn about research that analyzes public opinion by looking at data from Twitter. Wednesday, ASU researchers will discuss their studies into the causes of obesity. Thursday, we'll look at a pet-friendly art gathering and canine-inspired art. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.